They cashed out my trust fund to remodel their vacation home, then told me I was selfish for wanting to go to college. My name is Cassandra, and for as long as I can remember, I've felt like a decorative accessory in my parents' meticulously curated life. My father, Robert, is a high-profile cardiac surgeon in his late 50s, a man whose reputation is his religion. My mother, Evelyn, a former ballet dancer turned philanthropist and socialite in her mid-50s, treats our family's public image like a full-time production. I was an accident, a surprise that arrived just as their social ascent was gaining momentum. I wasn't raised, I was managed. My purpose was to look perfect in Christmas photos, to play the cello acceptably at their fundraisers, and to never, ever cause a wrinkle in the smooth silk of their existence. Love was conditional, based entirely on how well I reflected their success. AB Plus was a disgrace. A tear at a garden party was catastrophe. My dreams of studying architectural design were met with dismissive sighs. A hobby, darling, my mother would say, examining her nails. Perhaps something more substantial like law? It sounds better at the club. The facade began to crack the summer I turned 17. My father, it turned out, had been involved in a series of malpractice lawsuits that he'd kept hidden. They were settled quietly, but the financial drain was immense. Around the same time, a large charitable foundation my mother chaired became embroiled in an accounting scandal. No charges were filed, but donations dried up and their social capital took a nosedive. The whispers at the country club grew louder. Suddenly, the mask of flawless prosperity was slipping, and they were frantic to glue it back on. I had worked tirelessly throughout high school, not for their approval, but for an escape. I took advanced courses, built a portfolio, and landed a coveted internship at a local architecture firm. My salvation came in the form of a partial scholarship to a prestigious university with a strong architecture program. It wasn't full coverage, but it was my ticket out. The remaining costs were meant to be covered by a trust fund established by my maternal grandmother, a kind, practical woman who had seen the writing on the wall. "This is for your future, Cassie," she told me before she passed. "For your independence." It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough. When I told my parents about the scholarship, their reaction was ice cold. Architecture? My father scoffed, not looking up from his financial papers. Building houses? Really, Cassandra? My mother's concern was more practical and more venomous. "That scholarship money," she mused, "is it paid directly to you? Could it be redirected? We have pressing obligations. The lake house needs a complete renovation if we're to host the summer gala. It's an investment in our family's standing." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. A week later, after a vague sense of dread pushed me to check, I discovered the truth. The trust fund was empty, completely drained. A few frantic calls to the bank manager, an old friend of my grandmother's who remembered me, confirmed it. My parents had accessed it, using my grandmother's old paperwork and their status as guardians before I turned 18. They used every last penny to fund the renovation of their lakeside estate, a project to impress people who were already starting to snub them. The confrontation was a masterpiece of gaslighting. There were no apologies, only cold justifications. "We are your family," my father stated, his voice calm and clinical, as if explaining a medical procedure. "Our stability is your stability. That house is an asset. Your education can wait. You can take courses at the community college here and work at the club. We've already secured you a position." My mother chimed in, her voice dripping with wounded pride. "After everything we've given you, this is the thanks we get? We're under immense strain, and you're worried about a bank account? You're so entitled." In that moment, something in me shattered and then instantly fused into something harder and clearer. I saw them with total, horrifying clarity. I was not a daughter. I was a line item on their balance sheet, an asset to be liquidated when their own poor decisions threatened their credit rating with society. I left 2 days after my 18th birthday. I took my scholarship letter, my portfolio, the small amount of cash I'd saved from my internship, and a single suitcase. I moved across the country to the city where my university was located. The scholarship covered tuition. For everything else, I worked. I waited tables. I did CAD drafting for small firms. I was a nighttime office cleaner. I lived in a cramped apartment with 3 roommates, survived on instant noodles, and sometimes cried from sheer exhaustion. But for the first time, I breathed free air. The weight of their expectations, their constant surveillance, their emotional bartering was gone. It was the hardest and best thing I had ever done. I limited contact to brief, obligatory texts on birthdays and holidays. Their responses were either guilt-laden, "The house feels so empty without you," or performative, "Tell people you're at Yale. It's simpler." I built a life. I graduated with honors. I landed a job at a respected architecture firm in a vibrant coastal city, thousands of miles from my hometown. I worked my way up, made real friends, fell in love with a kind, steady man named Daniel who was a landscape architect. We built a life filled with quiet dinners, shared projects, and mutual respect. Things I'd never known were possible. For 5 years, I heard little from my parents. The silence was a blessing. Then last month, the deluge began. An email from my mother, effusive and strange. "Darling Cassandra, we've been doing so much thinking. We miss you terribly. We want to come visit, to see your world. We have a surprise for you, something wonderful to make up for lost time." The tone was so artificially bright, so utterly divorced from our history. It felt sinister. The surprise was dangled like a carrot. "You'll be so thrilled. We just know it." My blood ran cold. Every surprise from my childhood had been a trap. A promised trip that was canceled because I'd embarrassed them. A gift that came with a list of new obligations. I wrote back, polite but firm. "Thank you for the thought, but now is not a good time for a visit. I'm very busy with work. I hope you're both well." That's when the campaign started. My refusal was met with a tidal wave of guilt. My father called, his voice strained with practiced disappointment. "Your mother is heartbroken. Is this how you treat family?" Then came the messages from extended family, aunts, uncles, even my vapid cousin Sophia. "They're getting older, Cassandra. They just want to reconnect. Everyone makes mistakes. Family forgives." My parents, it seemed, had launched a full-scale propaganda operation, painting themselves as lonely, repentant parents and me as a cold, ungrateful child who refused to forgive. The pressure was immense, awakening old anxieties I thought I'd buried. Daniel held me as I shook with anger and residual fear. "You don't owe them a thing," he said quietly. "Not a single thing." I decided to try one last time for clarity, for some shred of adult communication. I sent a detailed, calm email. I outlined how their actions, draining my fund, belittling my dreams, their current guilt-tripping, had hurt me. I said that if they genuinely wanted a relationship, it would need to start with sincere apology and respect for my boundaries, not a surprise-laden ambush. The reply was a masterpiece of DARPA-level deflection. My mother's portion was all wounded theatrics. "To think we've raised such a suspicious child." This surprise was meant to bring joy. My father's was colder. "We made strategic decisions for the family unit. You're holding on to childish grievances. This surprise is a significant financial gesture to help you now." There was again the reduction of everything to money, to transactions. They didn't address a single emotional point. The surprise was clearly a bribe, a check they believed would erase the past and open my door to them. I stopped responding. That's when the atmosphere turned truly threatening. I started getting friend requests on LinkedIn from my father's colleagues. My mother began following my private Instagram. I had her blocked within minutes. Then, a FedEx envelope arrived at my office. A thick packet of old family photos with notes like, "Remember this happiness?" scrawled on the back. It felt less like nostalgia and more like evidence collection. The final straw was a voicemail from my father. His tone had shed all pretense of hurt. It was pure, cold authority. "We know where you work, Cassandra. We know the project you're pitching downtown next week. We'll be in the city. We will see you. It's time to end this foolishness." Panic, sharp and metallic, flooded my mouth. They weren't just guilting me. They were stalking me. They were planning to corner me in my professional space, to force a confrontation. This was about control, total and absolute. My past, my career, my peace. They were coming for all of it. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I took decisive, final action. First, I called building security at my office and gave them my parents' names and descriptions, instructing that they were not to be allowed entry under any circumstances. I then went to the local police station with Daniel by my side. I brought copies of all the emails, the voicemail transcript, the FedEx envelope. I filed a formal report for harassment and stalking and initiated the process for a restraining order. The officer, a woman with kind, tired eyes, listened to my story and nodded. "This is classic coercive control," she said. "You're doing the right thing." The legal paperwork was the flame to their gunpowder. I didn't inform them. I let the process server do his job. The reaction was nuclear. My phone exploded with calls from unknown numbers. I let them all go to voicemail. The messages were rage-filled monologues from my father, sobbing performances from my mother, and finally, a chillingly calm threat from my father. "You have no idea what you've just done to yourself. Your career in this field relies on reputation. We have friends everywhere." But I was done. Their power existed only in my fear, and I had decided to be fearless. I blocked every number. I locked down every social media profile. Daniel and I, already planning to move in together, accelerated our timeline. We found a beautiful, light-filled apartment in a different neighborhood, closer to the studio. We moved in a whirlwind weekend, and I gave no forwarding address to anyone who might be a leak. A week after the move, as I was unpacking books, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number, but the area code was from my hometown. It was a photo, a picture of my grandmother's antique locket, the one she promised me, the one I'd assumed was lost or sold. Beneath it was a single line from my mother: "We still have what's yours. Don't you want it?" It was a last twisted lure, a physical token of the only love I'd known in that house. Used as bait. I stared at it for a long moment. I thought of the girl who had worn that locket, hoping it would protect her. She was gone. In her place was a woman who had built her own sanctuary, brick by brick, with her own hands. I didn't reply. I deleted the photo and the message. I blocked the number. Then I walked into the living room, where Daniel was hanging our favorite print on the wall. Sunlight streamed through the new windows, illuminating the dust motes in the air like gold. He smiled at me, a question in his eyes. I simply nodded, walked over, and put my arms around him, resting my head on his shoulder. I looked out at our view of the city, our future, our quiet, unornamented life. The silence from them now is absolute. It's not the anxious silence of waiting for the next blow, but the deep, peaceful silence of storm that has finally passed. They have no address, no workplace access, no emotional hooks left in me. The restraining order sits in a file, a necessary shield, but I rarely think of it. I think instead of blueprints, of the smell of sawdust in Daniel's studio, of the friends coming over for dinner next Friday. I lost a trust fund, a family of ghosts, and a lifetime of conditional love. In return, I gained everything. Some nights, I dream of my grandmother. She's not wearing the locket. She's just smiling, sitting in the sunny kitchen of this new apartment, nodding as if to say, "See? I told you it was for your independence." And she was right. It just wasn't in the bank. It was in me all along.